lot of us assume that beauty pageants are mostly an American invention. And yeah, I can see how people view this as correct. But it is in fact the UK and Europe that set off this trend. Women would line up in droves to be judged on their beauty, style and grace, with riches and jewels being presented to the winner. Now I can all hear you shouting at me, why am I discussing beauty pageants on a railway channel? Well, the National Railway Museum has its own collection of beauty pageant regalia, and it's those jewels and those crowns that we will be looking at today. Working in industries in the early 1900s was disgusting, ugly work. While we look at heritage lines with a passion and a charm, it's still hard and backbreaking. The workers would get up between 2 and 4 in the morning, and many would have put in several hours before the commuters had even had their first cup of tea. Steam engines take hours to prepare, and the work to clean, fire and drive them day in, day out took its toll on the workers. While the love for the engines was there, it didn't help the working conditions, the pay and the demoralising look of disdain from the upper class commuters and passengers. To help raise awareness of the workers and to help raise their social standing, the railway industry decided to elevate a select few and give them special opportunities that few working class workers would ever get to see. Not only would they get special privileges, but they would also raise awareness of the railway industry. To pick the lucky few, the railway drew inspiration from May Day. May Day is an ancient holiday celebrating the beginning of summer and the beauty of spring. Villages would come together and children would dance around the maypole with ribbons. As the children danced around the pole, they would each hold a ribbon. The ribbons would intertwine, creating patterns on the pole. Before the dancing, the village would hold a parade, and at the head of the parade sat the May Queen. The Queen was usually a child. She would be dressed in white with a crown or tiara. She would usually carry flowers to celebrate spring and would oversee and begin the festivities. The choosing of the Queen is normally between the young girls of the village. The railway took the idea and wanted to choose girls that would represent the railway as a whole, and so a competition was held. Girls would be lined up and judged on their beauty, style, grace and poise. Other industries took notice, and soon cotton queens, fish queens, silk queens and even a salt queen were paraded. The opportunities to the lucky winner were enormous. The queens became the figureheads of their industry and would often meet prominent politicians and dignitaries and had the opportunity to speak publicly to the rich and elite. The upper classes were not too happy. Yes, these girls were stunning, but it still did not detract from where they came from, with many calling their cause a publicity stunt designed to distract from union disputes and employee dissatisfaction. The Stockton and Darlington Railway crowned the very first queen in 1925. Daughters of railway workers ranging in age from 13 to 17 were lined up to be judged, mostly on their physical appearance, and Helena Wotton took the first crown. Her work proved very popular, and in just 10 years, the Railway Queen pageant would attract tens of thousands of people. In 1935 in Bellevue, Manchester, in the middle of the Railway Carnival, 15-year-old Audrey Massam was crowned the 10th Railway Queen in front of a crowd of 70,000 people. Originally from Lancashire, Audrey took her job seriously and was invited as a guest of honour to turn on the Blackpool illuminations. Unlike other queens, her tenure gave her considerable fame. In her speech following the switch on, she spoke of her hope that the lights would illuminate the path to peace. Her popularity and her words turned several heads, and the politicians sent her to the USSR. The USSR was under Stalin's thumb, and the grumbling around that he was not too happy. War was brewing around them, and in a desperate attempt to try and dispel the tension, the 15-year-old was sent on a peacekeeping mission. It's hard to imagine the feeling that Audrey was feeling when she stood in the middle of the theatre in Moscow, knowing that one of the most vicious dictators, Stalin, stood mere feet in front of her. It was not known what they discussed, but I can imagine it was an interesting meeting. Audrey was also invited to see Lenin's family and widow, and she gifted a set of Russian stating dolls as a present. Audrey went home, but sadly her words of peace were unheeded, and war broke out just 4 years later. Audrey would survive the war and live a relatively quiet life. She was invited back to Blackpool in 1985 to light the illuminations once again, sharing the accolade with Joanna Lumley before passing in 2009. The Railway Queen's tenure would only last for a year before passing the throne to another girl, and the baton was passed from girl to girl until 1975. By then, the popularity of the beauty pageant had begun to wane. People were becoming more accepting that beauty was more than just skin deep, with some calling the whole process embarrassing and demeaning. The railways had improved, and there was little need for spokespeople to represent their industry, as the workers-gentry divide was corroding. The practice was eventually put to bed after Brenda Tomlinson was crowned, and the practice is now assigned to history. When I first saw the crowns and the jewels in the warehouse of the Railway Museum, I was naturally curious about their origin. You don't expect a crown and finery to be put amongst signals and model trains, chamber pots and railway signs. The crowns and finery are still displayed today and are easily accessible to all. It's a reminder that railway history doesn't have to be on the rails, and that the most unusual of objects can tell a story. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this week's video, and I want to say thank you so much for all your support. I don't like talking numbers, as I prefer the railways to be the stars of the show. That being said, we've just passed 450 subscribers, and I want to say thank you to all of you. Also, if you have any ideas or specific topics of any engines, items, or anything really, please let me know in the comments. There are a few topics that I can't cover yet, as some need more of a mini-series, and I feel that a single video won't do the subject justice. But if you want me to cover something, maybe something you've seen at a railway museum yourself, or something on the tracks, then I'll do my best. In the meantime, I love you all, stay safe, and I will see you all in next week's video.